Thank you, Phyllis. Welcome to Unity of Bloomington. Thank you for being here. My name's Mary Ellen May. Excuse me, I'll be your service leader today. Thank you to those of you joining us online. You are most welcome. Let's just take a brief moment just to turn inward and check in and breathe. Feel your feet on the ground. Just turn inward for a moment and fully arrive, so we can be present to the messages that we're about to receive. Thank you. The song we just heard, the prelude, "It Is Well With My Soul," has special significance. I'm going to tell you a story about Horatio Gates Spafford, who was born in 1828. He was a prosperous and devout Christian. A husband and father to 5 children, he was a loyal friend to the famous evangelist Dwight L. Moody. Horatio suffered significant business losses in the Chicago fire of 1871. His 4-year-old son, Horatio Jr., died of scarlet fever, and his remaining 4 children, all daughters, were lost when their steamship was struck while crossing the Atlantic for a family vacation. His wife, Anna, washed up on a plank of wood in South Wales and survived. He was not on the boat, as he was to join them later. While Horatio was en route to reunite with his wife, the ship's captain pointed out to him the exact location where his daughters had perished. At this time, it is said, Horatio retired to his cabin and penned the lyrics to It Is Well With My Soul, the song you just heard. If you're not familiar with them, those lyrics are, when peace, like a river, attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. After reuniting with his wife, both were devastated and remained loyal to God, believing there was a greater purpose. Anna heard a soft voice which said, you were saved for a purpose. The couple had 3 more children, again losing another son named Horatio at the age of 4. The Spaffords left America with other like-minded Christians and settled in Jerusalem to serve the needy, poor, sick, and to take in homeless children. Their desire was to show those living around them the love of Jesus. Both Horatio and Anna eventually were laid to rest in Jerusalem. It can truly be said that it is well with their souls, and so it is. I'd like to invite you to join me in speaking this affirmation. We are a heart-centered community seeking spiritual awakening and transformation by deepening our connections with God, self, and others. Now I invite you to stand if you'd like, or stay seated, but just sing. Up
and down, spinning round, seems things are changing almost every day. Up and down, spinning round, but I find balance, I find my way, centered in the peace of God, centered in the peace of God. There is clarity, there is wisdom, there is abundant grace, centered in the peace of God, centered in the peace of God. I am standing where love is landing, clear and open for the highest good. I am standing where love is landing, clear and open for the highest good, centered in the peace of God, centered in the peace of God, centered in the peace of God, centered in the peace of God.
Please be seated and join me in speaking our transition affirmation together. Unity of Bloomington is generating an abundant future in expansive alignment with Spirit. We lean deeply into truth principles, live our faith, and trust the process. Our greatest desire is to be abundant and attract those who value spiritual growth, including our next right minister.
If it's to be, if it's to be, if it's to be, it's up to me. If I seek the truth, let me speak the truth. If I'm lost in doubt, let me believe. I know I can be the change I want to see. So if it's to be, if it's to be, change I want to see. So if it's to be, if it's to be, if it's to be, it's up to me. If I dream of peace, let me be the peace. When I start from love, I am love. I know I can be the change I want to see. So if it's to be, if it's to be, if it's to be, it's up to me. You know it's up to me. You know it's up to me. If it's to be, you know it's up to me.
And now for our mystical moment. Today's mystical moment is based on Luke 9:18 through 20. Once, Jesus was praying in private, and his disciples were with him. He asked them, "Who do the crowds say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, that one of the prophets of long ago has come back to life." Jesus asked Peter, "Well, what about you? Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "God's Messiah." Jesus did not ask, "Who do the crowds think I am?" because he needed reassurance for low self-esteem. This question was, of course, a spiritual lesson. Each of us sees the world through the lens of our beliefs. First, we create reality in our minds, and then we see the world with our eyes. Our world has the meaning we give it. So, Jesus was asking about how his disciples were perceiving. In Matthew 6:22, Jesus said, "The lamp of the body is the eyes. If your eye is sound, your whole body will be filled with light." Others echoing this truth include James Allen, who said, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Don Miguel Ruiz said, "Our belief system is like a mirror that only shows us what we believe." Wayne Dyer, "You will see it when you believe it." Richard Rohr, "How you see is what you see." A Course in Miracles, "Projection makes perception." And now we'll have a song by Ginger Curry.
There is sadness, there is an aching. Don't try to erase it, embrace it. There is beauty, there is joy. Don't try to retain it, radiate it. We see the pieces and we forget that there is a wholeness. That's what we are. There is anger, there is anxiety. Don't try to erase it, embrace it. There is laughter, there is Don't try to retain it, radiate it. We see the pieces and we forget that there is a wholeness. That's what we are. There is jealousy, there is loneliness. Don't try to erase it, embrace it. There is compassion, there is peace. Don't try to retain it, radiate it. We see the pieces and we forget that there is a wholeness. That's what we are. Embrace it, radiate it, embrace it.
Thank you, Phyllis and Ginger. And now it is my joy and honor to introduce our speaker of the day. Jonna Marie Capio has been a member of Unity for 25 years. She credits the Unity principles and practices as being both ground and inspiration for her life and her life's work as a mental health therapist. Jonna is the transition team leader for Unity of Bloomington during our time in between search for our new spiritual leadership. Jonna has worked hard over the years on her own mindset and feels that she has been incredibly blessed with an abundant life. Each day, she wakes up in gratitude and appreciation for her home in the woods, husband Roy, son Zach, dog Molly, good health, and her life as a helper of people. She believes, to whom much is given, much is expected. As a person with many blessings, Jonna feels it is her responsibility to do what God would have her to do, which, she has realized, is usually what shows up while she strives to pay attention and listen. Her personal motto is, how can I help? And now I give you Jonna Capio.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Thank you, music team. Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you, Ginger. Embrace it. Embrace it. So here we are. I am so honored to get to talk to all of you today. Thank you. I want to talk about the thing we are all experiencing, momentous change. Currently, our world is in chaos, and all institutions are fragmenting or being gutted. Nothing makes logical sense, and most things are shocking. We know from our faith beliefs that this shedding is part of the cycle of the old constructs falling away to make way for new ways of being attempting to be born. Currently, our dominant culture is characterized by an exploitive and oppressive, fear-based power over others' belief, rather than a belief of empowered people who operate in cooperation and collaboration. This power over structure is maintained by seeing in a judgmental and dualistic perspective. This way of seeing reduces the nature of everything away from its complexity and beauty and into right and wrong and black and white. People are not all knowing. We are limited in what we see by how we see. All of the isms of our culture are dualistic seeing, capitalism, ageism, racism, colonialism. Not only are the dominant mega economic, political, and industrial systems destroying our planet, but the cultural norms perpetuated by these systems thrive only through separation, competition, alienation, and overconsumption. The truth is that ultimately, the dominant culture serves no one. By its very nature, our culture is anti-relationship and anti-life. We have been conditioned to see ourselves as victims and as separate from all that is. We are taught that something outside of us, like a savior, will save us. The literal Christian interpretation is that Christ will come again in physical form to save us. What we believe here at Unity is that we are what we are seeking. It is us that must change and act. We must each become the Christ to save ourselves. But how to be the change we want to see with all of this change? I chose my title today, Good Grief, because in the process of change, there's a loss and a letting go, which most often evokes grief. Grief is anguish. It can look like physiological distress, confusion, yearning, obsessive dwelling on the past, apprehension about the future. Intense grief can become life-threatening through the disruption of the immune system, self-neglect, and suicidal thoughts. Grief may also take the form of regret, remorse, and sorrow. That term, spiritual bypassing, is the avoidance of the grief experience with busyness and shallow positivity. In essence, stuffing the feelings. The phrase good grief originated in the 1600s as the expression good lack, in which the word lack at the time meant grief. And saying good grief gained popularity when it was used by Charles Schulz in his comic strip, The Peanuts. His main character, Charlie Brown, often exclaimed, "Good grief," to express his surprise, frustration, and loss. So what does the Bible say about grief? Throughout this book, we see God's people express this deep emotion. David expressed grief throughout the Psalms. The disciples were grieved when Jesus told them that they would be betrayed and killed, that he would be betrayed and killed. In Ecclesiastes 3:1 and 3:4, it says, "There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance." The human life contains it all: grief, loss, joy, and bliss. The hardest loss, most often, is the loss of a loved one. Most people believe that healing means we have to forget them. While we may always feel the emptiness, it is in the memory that our loved one lives on in our hearts. We are meant to embrace the grief process because it takes us on a healing journey. Grief is universal. At some point, everyone will have at least one encounter with grief. It may be the death of a loved one, the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, or any other change that alters life as we know it. Grief is very personal. Grief passes through stages. It is not meant to be neat or necessarily linear. Grief doesn't follow any timeline or schedule. Grief is sacred. Grief is part of the great mystery that is life. Grief is a journey into discomfort and through the dark unknown. Author Joan Chittister, in her book Gospel Days, wrote, "Grief is a sign that we love something more than ourselves. Grief makes us worthy to suffer with the rest of the world." In the Beatitudes, Jesus taught, "Blessed are those that mourn, for they will be comforted." Jesus said our grief gives us the opportunity to lean into and know the comfort of God. In his book, Sermon on the Mount, Emmett Fox reminds us that comfort in this passage means having a sacred experience of God's presence descending on us. In her book on death and dying, psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross defined the stages of grief. They are shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, depression, sometimes we can get stuck there, the upward turn, where we can sometimes glimpse some hope, reconstruction and working through, acceptance, and then hope. My job as a mental health therapist is to be with people. I call these stages of adjusting to what is, especially these days with so much change and chaos going on. I'm talking about this today because our collective grief feels all-consuming. It's easy to get stuck in our grief because we keep trying to understand the unfathomable. Grief is not to be understood. It is to be bared. We are to be with our grief, believing even in the biggest challenges that God, or all good, is with us and at work in our lives. Holding on to this promise will help us to process through our grief. So last fall, I found myself in my own grief experience. I recognized I was overwhelmed, tired, irritable. I felt like I was wearing a weighted blanket. I've been with grief before. I knew I needed perspective to get my grounding and to challenge my ego's attempts to blame. I engaged with my therapist to sort through the hard pieces of the grief. And I love to read. My habit is to take refuge in the books of really smart people who put their insights and their learning into books. With Spirit as my guide, I reached for a couple of books at Morgenstern's that called to me to help prompt processing of my grief. The first book that called to me was How to Live in a Chaotic Climate by Laura Schmidt, and the other was Everything Belongs by Richard Rohr. Very interesting. These two books were true gifts to me. I want to share some insights that I discovered in my own grief journey. And I will also share how a community can work together to support one another while being in our evolving and chaotic world. To begin, that first primary false belief to be busted is constant judgment in dualistic thinking, the black and white, them and us, the othering undergirding all language. Separation through judgment is the perspective and attitude of our dominant culture. We learn to be disconnected from ourselves, from others, and the earth. Disconnection is a survival tool developed by fear-based thinking and victim living. Separation appears to protect us from pain and uncertainty, but we aren't meant to live as separate or in pain. And separation, the physicists tell us, is an illusion, a giant untruth. We humans are no more separate from each other or the earth than water is separate from the ocean. Francis Weller, a psychotherapist and activist, refers to this current time in between as the long dark. This is a reference to alchemy and how change happens in the dark and mysterious aspects of life. In the book, How to Live in a Chaotic Climate, Laura Schmidt and her co-authors shared their wisdom from their own grief experiences in these volatile times. They recognized their shared grief and used their knowledge of the 12-step support groups to create a supportive global community called the Good Grief Network. The GGN community encourages people to come together in conscious community, and their purpose is to metabolize their heavy feelings and create personal and collective resilience to better weather these tumultuous times. Bringing people together in a time marked by great division is radical and one of the most important salves for separation. In their process, Laura and her friends identify the 10 steps to resilience and empowerment in a chaotic climate. The 10 steps for humans are: learn to see and accept the severity of our predicament, learn to be present with uncertainty, honor mortality and life and death, do our inner work, develop an awareness of our own biases and perception, practice gratitude and create connections, rest, grieve, show up, and invest energy into doing service work. Author Laura Schmidt is a smart human who is a gifted communicator of what is. Her book is thorough and validating. Ultimately, I found grief relief and her model helpful for living open-hearted and in community in our long dark. The author reminded me of the importance and the power of words to name the multiple crises we are facing. There are many climates in crisis, not just environmental, but the deconstruction of social norms, the demise of dominant political frameworks and ideologies, the blurring of cultural margins, the challenges to all securities, including financial, the emerging dark side to our disease-focused healthcare, etc., all at once. We are in the long dark, a dark night of the collective soul. We could also say we're in the belly of the whale, just like Jonah. We humans like to avoid or run from all of this, but we cannot. We are in it. We just celebrated my favorite holiday, not Valentine's Day, Groundhog Day. I love the day because of the rich metaphysical meaning in the Groundhog Day movie. Roy indulges me, and we watch this 1993 film every year. Groundhog Day is a hilarious film that glimpses the meaning of life and shows the lengths to which we humans try to avoid the pain. It's a grand metaphor some scholars cite as Buddhist, Christian, psychological, or secularly philosophical. For those of you too young to know the reference, please indulge me and promise yourself to watch this classic movie. The main character is a self-centered know-it-all Phil Connors, played magnificently by Bill Murray. Phil thinks he can deny a brewing blizzard. The movie is set in winter, which is a great metaphor for the dark and harsh that precedes birth. In the story, egotistical Phil wakes up on the same day over and over, Groundhog Day. Phil reincarnates each day, but he also transforms his behavior over time. At first, he takes self-centered advantage of his unique situation because he has no apparent consequences, robbing bank trucks, stuffing his face with unhealthy foods, and tricking a woman into bed. After enough ego antics, he finally tires of his stuckness and sinks into deep grief. He even tries to kill himself in many ways. Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "No man steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." In that sense, Phil doesn't really repeat the same day because one thing is different each Groundhog Day, him. His shift finally occurs when he is honest and confides to Rita what is happening to him. She shows him great empathy, suggests that his plight might actually be a gift, and for the first time spends the entire day with him. Eventually, Phil perfects his day with creative self-improvement tasks and learns to compassionately serve others. Once he becomes the best possible version of himself, he's released from repeating his dark night, while also winning the love of his virtuous producer, Rita. By the end of the film, he has managed to become the town hero for all of his acts of service he has learned in a single day. He became the change agent within his sphere of influence. As humans, something does change every day, even if it is imperceptible. It's ourselves, bit by bit, round and round. And now here we are again. Let's look at our efforts with having electric cars as one example of our spirals. In 1832, Robert Anderson invented the first electric car. In the 1870s, they became more practical. They had a heyday between 1900 and 1912. Edison, Porsche, Ford all had a hand in the development of electric cars until Texas crude oil was heavily marketed. The electric car then disappeared completely by 1935. When high oil prices soared in the 1970s, electric cars were again rediscovered and then lost again until the 2000s when Toyota mass-produced the Prius. And here we are again with Tesla and other models. Nature is strong medicine and it tells the truth, so we better be prepared to see and hear it. I believe more than saving, we need to be loving the earth and her people. The newest generation Earth activist, Greta Thunberg, succinctly said, Climate change is coming, whether you like it or not. Personally, I remember a Keep America Beautiful anti-pollution ad that featured a crying American Indian man. It became a well-recognized symbol of the anti-littering campaign and a piece of pop culture in the 70s. This image remains an important symbol for me about my grief of what the grown-ups were allowing to happen to the earth. For you younger folks, this is an image. This image was of Iron Eyes Cody, an American Indian in full ceremonial dress who shed a tear while gazing at the sight of smokestacks and litter taking over the landscape.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it.
Thank you, Seb. Then as now, I believe the Indians lived right and with the earth. I grew up in northern Illinois, and we were taught the Indian history of our area. A statue of Chief Black Hawk stands overlooking the Rock River. As a kid, I could see the intense beauty of nature, as well as the trash and pollution of the land by people like me. Until I did this research, I didn't realize that the National Congress of American Indians deemed this iconic ad inappropriate. The Indians saw it as a painful reminder of the stereotypes without any actual land or environmental protections. Well, I can see this now, but as a kid, I felt like it proved that the Indians lived right, and it should have been a strong wake-up call to the adults. I didn't know these words then, but the words I would use now are that the Native American culture lived in the presence without dualistic thinking and beliefs of separation. According to How to Live in a Chaotic Climate, author Laura Schmidt argues that communities of depth can move our dominant culture through the long dark by accepting the invitation into the dark depths of self-understanding together, opening to connect with those we might be othering, grieving fully our losses that were actually meant to break us open, grieving our complicity in the mess, learning to rewild ourselves, identify our intrinsic superpowers, and engaging in meaningful conversations and actions. Here at Unity, we are consciously engaged in this process of reconnection and depth creation. We are sharing ourselves with messages of substance, volunteering to serve, creating relationships, lingering longer after service, music team, spiritual cinema, yoga, drumming, green team, etc. Our challenge is to keep showing up in love, opening our hearts, unlearning judgment, being vulnerable, feeling our emotions, owning our parts, and learning to serve. Rohr cites chapter 9 of John, in which the blind man was given sight, and that Jesus specifically came into the world because of judgment, so that those without sight may see, and those with sight be turned blind. What Jesus was saying is that people who think they know usually are just being judgmental in their seeing from their limited perspective. He asks us to question our own authority. He asks us to see with a beginner's mind. To say, I don't know, is to be open and teachable. In his talk, Reverend Fritz stressed learning to live as presence, which is what we are. I believe that our current collective challenge is to cultivate a relationship with chaos and uncertainty, to nurture our connectedness, end our ignorant beliefs in separation, and learn to be presence. In Everything Belongs, Richard Rohr states The true contemplative is not just occasionally aware of the presence, but trusts, allows, and delights in it. We are being asked to do hard things. Rohr reminds us that all spiritual disciplines everywhere and all through time have but one purpose: to get rid of illusions so that we can be present to what is. Our challenge is being fully present in the chaos. I recently had a realization about witnessing feelings and not embodying the emotion of the experience, and I want to share this. It's really hard to describe a gut experience, and so I'm just going to ask you to please bear with me. One night, after Roy and I had finished dinner, we began to watch our 30 minutes of national news on a big screen TV, and my phone rang. I saw on the caller ID it was my son, Zach. I smiled with my whole self and turned up the volume on the speakerphone as Roy asked if it was Zach, and he muted the news. We enjoyed talking to my son, and it's rather rare for him to call early evening because of the 3-hour time difference. As Roy and I talked, I noticed the relaxation in my body, along with the images of chaos in the background and crisis moving wildly on the TV screen in the background. I breathed and stayed in my body. I focused on our conversation while only slightly noticing war images, weather catastrophes, U.S. democratic insanity, rantings of fear, gun violence. I observed with great interest that as I was present in my body, breathing and staying with the feelings of love, those images just became moving colors and shapes. In hindsight, I realized when love is central, chaos is just chaos, swirling around. Ultimately, what I learned from my full grief experience is that my main message to you is that we can stay present to what is without embodying the chaos feelings. In Everything Belongs, Rohr explains the call of Jonah. Briefly, Jonah was a prophet who was running from God. He was used by God in spite of himself. In this parable, Jonah was swallowed by the whale and taken to where he did not want to go. This was Jesus' metaphor for death to our little selves and rebirth into our divinity, just like Phil Connors in Groundhog Day. We are in the belly of the whale. We too must go often where we don't want to, so that we can be spat out onto our new shore and understand our call into service for humankind. As a culture, we rarely go freely into the belly of the dark beast. Usually it takes a giant crisis or a looming disaster before we respond to the call. So, here we are together, repeatedly needing to choose to be our best self in spite of seeing what we don't want. Our spiritual challenge is to trust this process of the alchemical long dark. We must be with the pain of our grief, without answers, without conclusions, and some days apparently without meaning. We are what we are seeking, love. All traditions seek God presence of utter awareness and full consciousness. Rohr insists that everything belongs and everything can be received. To begin, Rohr encourages us not to avoid, deny, dismiss, defy, stuff, blame, or ignore, etc. Instead, see and be with and act. What is, is. What is the great teacher, and what is for us. It is our good grief that marinates and tenderizes us. We are learning to embrace the dark and go into the depths. Ultimately, we will find we are our own Savior, leading us into presence. So may each of us know today and relearn again tomorrow that even in this insane chaos, we can choose to breathe, align with love, know we are safe within the web of love. We are the web of life, and that everything belongs, even and especially this chaos and insanity. Thank you.
centered in the Holy Spirit of the One, centered in the Spirit of the One, centered in the Holy Spirit of the One, centered in the Spirit of the One, centered in the Holy Spirit of the One, centered in the Spirit of the
Please get comfortable in your seats. If possible, gently close your eyes. Feet flat on the floor, hands comfortable. Meditation really takes place when you can quiet your body and quiet your mind. This morning, pretend with me see yourself as the first day of a vacation that hasn't occurred in a long time, that you are at the location of your choice. It is early morning. The sun is up, and you find yourself beside the hot tub with your ready cup of tea or coffee. And as you slide into the warm water, you can feel all the concerns and pressures float away as you slide into the water. The body relaxes, totally relaxes, and the head clears. It feels like you are immersed in the sea of tranquility and a part of the ocean of love. As you reach this center of your own being, this is the place where you feel love in your heart. St. Augustine said, our whole reason for being is to heal the eye of the heart so that we can see God. So as you sit, and as your mind comes to rest, let us take the next few minutes and listen intently for the encouragement, the ideas, the joy that our heart can bring us. Now is the time to listen to the eye of your heart.
and every moment I am safe and all is well. I am held, I am whole, I surrender to it all. When I trust and let go, then I know that all is well. All is well. In this and every moment I am safe and all is well. In this and every moment I am safe and all is well. I am safe and all is well.
We prepare now to show our gratitude for what we continue to receive. There are several ways to contribute to Unity of Bloomington. Checks or cash are always welcome. Or you can use the text to give button on the screen or the donate button on the website. As the offering bags are passed, you may want to bless the bags and their contents. If you are new to us, please fill out one of the blue visitor forms in the pocket of the chair in front of you with your first impressions. Prayer request forms are also available in the pocket. Both of these forms may be dropped into the offering bag as it is passed. If the greeter would please come up. And you can join me in speaking our abundance affirmation.
I am an abundant being in an abundant universe. I am not dependent on people or situations for my good. God is the source of my supply. I always have something to give, and I consistently give it. I expect the best, I give my best, and I now attract the best in every experience. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me. Deep in my heart, deep in my soul, I know I'm safe, I am whole. Deeply I breathe, freely release, sharing with everyone this peace. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me. Deep in my heart, deep in my soul, I know I'm safe, I am whole. Deeply I breathe, freely release, sharing with everyone this peace. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me. Nothing can shake this immovable peace, this immovable peace within me.
Now please join me in saying our offering blessing. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. Thank you. A few announcements. Today is the annual meeting right after the service with a potluck, so please stick around and enjoy this feast. Saturday, March 2nd, choir practice at 10:30 a.m. Sunday, March 3rd, a Course in Miracles workshop from 12 to 1:30. Wednesday, March 6th, interplay, not this Wednesday, the next Wednesday, from 1 to 2. Please come out and play. Sunday, March 10th, spiritual cinema, Amandla, a revolution in 4-part harmony. Upcoming speakers, March 3rd, Reverend Karen Williams. She'll be talking about the divine makes all things possible. On March 10th, Reverend Paul Hasselbeck as speaker via Zoom. March 17th and 24th, we'll have Reverend Robin Volker as speaker on Zoom. And Sunday, March 31st, Phyllis Wycliffe as coordinator, Easter in story and song. And now, our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And just one more quick announcement before our closing song. These are some beautiful Unity stickers with a little QR code that can go on your laptop or water bottle, or you can pass them out to friends. And this QR code takes people to our new person page on the Unity website. So there are stickers out there in the lobby, and just help yourself to some and pass them around if you like. So let's gather for our closing song.
As you all form a circle, please keep going and form the circle. We're going to take this moment to bless the food once you're in circle, and then we're going to sing our peace song. So if you all, and you can spread out, because we have a lot of folks today, and it's awesome. All right? So while we're in there, all right, we're almost in a circle. Wow. All right. So everywhere, we're going to bless the food, and then we're going to sing our way out. So take a moment, and let's take a breath, and inhale the love and gratitude that is in our space right now. And we bless the food that we're going to be enjoying together as it heals our body and it nourishes us, and that we're going to nourish each other as we're talking and coming together as a community. And this is our blessing for today. So thank you, God. And so it is. All right.